When I was in B.Ed, I remember learning about Bloom's taxonomy, the three domains of learning: cognitive, psychomotor, and affective. And we were asked to focus on the cognitive. The physical education schools, they would focus on the psychomotor. But I always wondered when and where would the affective domain be addressed. And this search got results when I chanced to attend, besides my yoga sessions, where that's where I was beginning to learn and understand how to reach up to the subconscious. But I was myself so caught up in the suppression of emotions that it was having but very slow and gradual effect, and I needed a good long hand holding, which was happening. And in that process, because my preceptor kept me open minded and encouraged me to find out what are the newer ways of teaching and learning that are happening in the world today. In that, I discovered one lady who was teaching emotional freedom technique. She had learned directly from Gary Craig. So, very well, I landed up there because I was always willing to learn newer ways of teaching and learning and anything that can help my students to make their learning easier and better, faster, with greater concentration. Right enough, I was myself greatly helped in those 2 day sessions. We were 18 of us who attended that workshop with her, and I am the only one who became a practitioner out of that. In the sense, because having learned, I was a teacher, and whenever I learn anything new, this is always with me that I am already thinking. At the back of my mind, it goes on. I don't have to consciously think, okay, how this can be taught and made easier for others. So that's what I did. I started helping out some of my colleagues, and occasionally, when there was some student who was willing to try out something new, I would help them out. And like that, I don't know, when did I become a practitioner? When it so happened that a friend of mine was having a corporate kind of session, a stall. She asked me to be there because I used to do some corporate workshops, some self help based on yoga concepts. So I was there. And in addition, I had this technique while we were waiting for the whole thing to open. There was one of the girl who came to me and she asked me, "Ki Didi, aap kya kya karte ho?" So I told her this thing, and she got interested in this emotional freedom technique. And she said, "Mere ko bhi karao na." So I made her do, and it was like opening up a Pandora's box because she was so full of suppressed emotions pent up over all her lifetime, I suppose. And she came up and told me so many various things that more than me, she appointed me as her healer. And regularly she started coming to me twice a week, and she would have various things that she wanted to heal with this. And she brought me so many other people also who needed similar help. Like that, I became a practitioner. But in that process, with my yoga background and this technique, the results it was bringing in, and it so happened that practically everybody who came to me were also from some yoga class or the other. And it was easier for me, therefore, to explain to them in the yoga terminology. And in that process, I found that I didn't even realize when I had modified this technique and it did not remain just EFT the way I had learnt it. It became much more than that, that it begins to manage with the emotion and it goes on to forming changed perception of themselves, of things around, and it became a practice of yoga for them. In the practice of yoga, there is the Klishta Vritti and Aklishta Vritti they talk about. They talk of practice of Yama Niyamas, where there is a concept of Pratipaksha Bhavana. Pratipaksha Bhavana is to think of the opposite when you are faced with an undesirable. things like hinsa, asatya, and jealousy, and all that. So think of the opposite. Now, very obviously, when that is what you're feeling, how can you suddenly change to the opposite? I found I could make them do this technique with the slight modification that I was putting into it to help them to suit their thinking. It worked and it became very popular among them. So that is what I find that I am at it. Today, it's nearly 20 years that I have been using it, practicing it on myself. I have been able to bring about a lot of changes in myself. My own emotional state is so much more balanced. I was a stoic, otherwise, I would appear as a stoic, and I was behaving like one, and I started believing I'm one. I was afraid of letting my emotion show. Now I'm not, because I have a way of managing them. That emotional energy I'm able to make use of for proper positive growth and development, not only of mine, of people around. I'm much more calmer. I used to be irritable very easily. I would be a crybaby, but all that is gone thanks to a beautiful combination of yoga and EFT. And now, therefore, the two combined is called Vritti Changing Technique. I also like to call it Vritti Choosing Technique because from those who are well into yoga philosophy, I help them choose it by themselves. Otherwise, I need to nudge and guide them gradually and slowly so that they have some higher values in life from where they can choose and continue in the path of self growth, evolve themselves better, and to rise above the mundane living and therefore be free from the daily life stresses. So, I'll talk about this affective domain which I have experienced myself, and what are these three domains. I think knowing that will help us go further in our program related to this Vritti changing technique. And I also like to call this program as the cocoon effect. Yes, I will explain to you how and why of that. In fact, by the time I come to explain that to you, you will realize how apt the name the cocoon effect is for this.